Yeah, I mean, I always liked art since I was a kid, but I never really thought there would be something that would, be everything in my life. I thought about being a diplomat. I wanted to travel the world. When I was doing my fourth semester in law school, I was so miserable that I was like, there's no way that's not for me. Life without color wouldn't be the same. There's people out there that they want to have something that scream Britto.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From all the transition that I do, I have to always somehow there leave the DNA of Britto. But I paint the universe of things that I love.
Sounds like you made that happen.
Now, there is some happy colors. We are here in dreary, rainy New York City, or
Yes.
Long Island, actually. And my co-host with me today is used to be the producer of the show. She's the inventor of the show, but now she's my boss, and I get to work directly for her. And her name is Lisa Sabat, and we all met Romero when we visited your place in Miami a year and a half ago.
Hi, Romero. How are you?
Hey, how are you? You need to come back. You have all come back in here during the summer.
Yes. We
We'll be
definitely
sure to
need
do
to. Jim's right. It's pouring here today, so I can't imagine what it's like in Miami this morning.
Well, it's sunny, and I walk on the beach. I don't want to make you feel bad, but I did walk on the beach for a little bit, and then I got to the water. The water was very calm, and then I went in and out, and then I took a shower, and I'm here now.
Perfect.
We hate you for that.
You guys have to have an office here in Miami for like off season. New York, just come over here. A lot of people from New York in here. This is like the other borough of New York.
How's your world today, Romero? Busy? Is this
My
an
world
interesting
is
time for you?
very busy. I've been traveling for 2 months. I was in Brazil, and then I came back to US. And then I end up going to Japan for 3 weeks and a half.
I heard you just opened up a store there, right?
Yeah, we opened 2 stores, and then
Nice.
we flew back, and then I spent like 4 days here, and I went to Europe, and I spent a week in Europe between Switzerland and Germany.
Wow, you've been very busy.
Do you get to now be home for a little bit?
Yes, I was going to be going to Monaco this month. I was going to go Monaco, south of France, and then I was going to Ibiza, but I thought it was too much, and I have a lot of work for me to do.
Yeah.
Work for next season. So I decided not to go. I may go in June to a quick trip to Rome, and then I'm going to go in July to another trip to Italy, which is going to be Florence.
Oh, wow. So you're going to have to get your own plane, the Romero Britto.
Yeah, I know how it'll be decorated.
Yeah. No, I used to have a plane. I just got rid of it. But yeah, I miss a plane very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Romero, your work known as Britto is one of the most known works of art and bodies of art around the world. And once I got to know you, and it's like you get a red car, and everyone has a red car. I see your work all over the place now, and it makes me smile every time I see it. How do you divide your time? You're the most successful licensed artist around. Your work is super well exposed and getting more and more popular all the time, if that's possible. How do you divide your time with all the travel? When do you get to actually work your artistry? How do you manage the management of your business, the management of your time? It seems like it could get out of control if you weren't very deliberate about time management.
Well, I mean, I definitely, one of the things that I did really early on was to hire good people. And once you hire good people, definitely give a lot of space for someone like myself, the founder, for me to, make time for me to do what I really love the most, is to create art. And the process of creating pieces of art, it goes from the idea, and the idea goes as sketches, and these sketches, I have to select colors, and then I give all this art to assistants of mine, so they fill in the color. And as they're filling the color, the process never ends because I have work in different time. So I always have work already for me to work and work to be done. It's just like it never ends. Do you understand? Because I can be in the studio and start so many new pieces. And several months later, I'm gonna work on those. But there was works before that was finished, so it's an ongoing, you know, merry-go-round that never stops. But of course, that I always work in priorities. My projects, my commissions for galleries or collectors, and I have my travels, and I do several travels. I go to charity events, because I'm involved in some charities.
I know you supported over 250 charities. That's just
Yes, and
amazing.
I've been recently very involved in three charities, which I resigned, the three charities. One of them gave it to me, a trustee emeritus, which is the King's Foundation, King of England's Foundation. I've been involved in the foundation for more than 10 years. So, but I think I can be more helpful, not necessarily, being part of the the meetings and everything, but more from the outside. So they give it to me, a trustee emeritus. And then I'm going to step down this year. Also, the Queen of Sweden's charity, which is called Childhood Foundation. So, best buddies I have left, more than a year ago. And so I do work with charities, but not necessarily being the board, which it takes a lot of my time, of my work.
Yes.
So, but I do work in a different capacity.
You mentioned you're possibly going to Rome in July. I know you knew and did work with Pope Francis. What are your feelings now, a week after the new Pope has been selected? Have you by chance met this Pope, and might you have a chance to meet him when you go there in July? Because I know you've been very active with the Vatican.
Well, I mean, I think it's very soon. I think there's so much going on with the agenda with the new Pope. I'm going to give some breathing time, and eventually I will come to visit the Pope. Yes, maybe sometime next year. This is so new, so many changes for not only for the Vatican, but also for the Pope. So it's just, I think it's going to be something like more next year.
Do me a favor, take us back to the beginning. We'd love to hear the story of how you started out as an artist and building the businesses and the brand and the community that you have today.
Well,
and didn't it start in Brazil?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked art since I was a kid, but I never really thought there would be something that would, be everything in my life. I thought about being a diplomat, to work for the government in Brazil, and I wanted to travel the world. I got inspired by this family that I got to know in Brazil. They were British, and my friend's father was a diplomat. And I didn't grow up with my father, so I got inspired on the position that my friends had, my friend's father. And I was like, oh, this is a type of job I would love to have, being a diplomat. They used to do beautiful parties in their house. They have this amazing home in the beach. And I was like, that is what I would like to do. A job like that I would be traveling the world. There'll be always new people. And I like the idea of being together with a lot of different people from different countries.
Sounds like you made that happen.
So I set myself to go to diplomacy school. But before that, I had to have a degree, because you can be a diplomat two ways. One, a career diplomat, you have to study. But if you are involved in politics, if you're somebody very influential, you can be invited to be, an ambassador of a country without going through school. Happening all the time. You have somebody very successful or from a very prominent family that they are very involved in politics or help a president. And the president selects one of those people who may be smart to be a diplomat in a country, and usually are a very good country. Like you're invited to be the ambassador to US in London, or you go to Paris, or go to Tokyo, or let's say Germany or Belgium, Holland. Anyway, so when I was doing my fourth semester in law school, I was so miserable that I was like, there's no way that's not for me. And that's when I made a decision to go after my art.
Okay.
and which was something that today when I think about was pretty crazy, and I'm so glad that worked out.
Yep.
But I gave 100%, 1,000% of my time to my art. I married somebody that she was really very supportive of my work, and she never was the kind of person that wanted to be ahead of my art, and she was one always supported my art from behind, and was the best thing that happened to me as well, because when you get somebody in your life that supports what you do and understand the whole thing, it was much easier for me on that end too.
Well,
So
underline that. That is so critical for us in our lives to have someone who is supportive like that, and
yeah,
it's not everyone who has that.
so true. I was very lucky, and the best person that ever had in my life was Cheryl. So
And unfortunately, you lost Cheryl last year, and it must be very painful for you.
yeah, no, it was very difficult for me and my son. And one of the things that I mean, you have to always to realize you don't want to see people that you love being suffering, and this is and we have to understand this is a very temporary thing, that we are here, and so you just have to understand that. And
How old is your
so
son, Brendan?
my son is 35 now. Yes, 35. I can't believe I have a son 35,
I
but
know.
Because
You look too
you're
young.
only 37.
I know.
You mentioned that you didn't grow up with your dad. How has that influenced you being a dad?
Well, it's pretty. I try to do my best. My son tells me that I've been the best dad for him, but it's very hard. You hear
That's
so
awfully
much,
nice to hear.
huh?
That's
It's
awfully
so
nice to hear.
awfully nice to hear. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I try my best to be the best dad. I mean, his mother was the best mother in the world. So I try to emulate a little bit of what she did
Mm.
on for him, I mean, give the most space for Brandon and encouraging him to continue be a good person, and his work and everything. It's not easy to be a dad or a mom. So you don't have like a recipe. You have people that can inspire you if you have amazing parents, amazing family, rituals, and which can, inspire one to kind of, hey, my mother, my grandmother did that, it worked, was so nice. And all this little thing that can make a whole upbringing of a child be so special, and they don't feel lost or disconnected to the family, to the family, basically.
Well,
So
when we were in Brito Palace, there were tons of pictures of you and your son, with your son being all ages. Was he a part of the organization or the business at all?
yeah, I mean, I always wanted to bring him over. I never really pushed him to be part of the business, but I was always like, okay, if you're not doing anything, you can be part of this.
Yeah.
I'm always hope that he would do his own thing. You know what I mean? Because I think you have to give space for your kids to dream and
Hmm.
develop whatever they want to do. Because I don't want to be the kind of parent that say to a lot. I see all the time. A family has a big business, and you suck in the whole family to work on that,
Yes.
even though sometimes you really don't want to.
Right.
Like when you see Warren Buffett, he got a son that he's like in theater, what I mean. So he's not in business,
Yep.
and the other one is a farmer, but he ended up going to be in part of the business. No, his grandson is a professor at Columbia. So each one of them does something, but you need to go after your dream, because the dream of your grandfather is not your dream. We
Right.
all have different dreams.
And let's face it, it's a little tough to be Brendan Brito because if you walk around the Brito Palace, not a lot of people have a palace named after them, and not a lot of people lead the life that you've been fortunate enough to live in or living. Because walking around there, I saw pictures of you with kings and queens and
Yes.
leaders and popes. It's just an amazing. Those are big, big shoes, Romero.
So take
Well,
us.
usually when I get gifts for my son, and that if his shoes, I make sure it's very big.
Let's go back to you starting off as an artist. When did you make the journey from to Miami, and how did you start off in Miami?
I always like art.
Right.
I did art as a kid, and I share my work with people, with my friends, school, my teachers, my house. So I
Was it a
always
similar happy style back then?
It was colorful. It was very colorful. There was a moment I used earth tones. There was a moment that I did fingerprint.
Yep.
I did different kind of thing because I didn't have all the supplies at that point.
Yes, I
And
heard this.
and then there was a point I was doing a lot of black and white. I did a lot of watercolors. And then there was a point that I when I moved to US, I spent 1 year in Europe, mostly because of this family that I met, and I met other people. And when I said that I want to spend 1 year in Europe, all these people that I met say, why don't you come and spend some time here? So I spent some time in France, some time in Germany, in friends that I made, and which was amazing. So I spent 1 year traveling Europe. But when I came back, I had to go to college, to go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in law school, that's when I realized it's not for me. And then I quit. And then I said to myself, maybe I'm gonna go to visit a friend of mine in Miami.
Okay.
I had saved some money. I got a ticket. And then I was like, let's see what's happening. Because my thought was I would visit Miami and I would get a flight, Miami, New York, London, and I would stay in Europe.
Okay.
I would try my life in there. And here in Miami, and for quite a while, I used to read a lot of paper. And I had this idea of painting on paper. So I painted a lot of newspaper. I had to be very careful because the paper wet is very fragile.
Gotcha.
So I did some watercolor, tempera, and pastel. And then at the same time, because I got odd jobs here in Miami, like washing dishes, working on restaurant and doing gardening. And then, but anytime I had available, I was doing, I was trying to sell my work in the Sidewalk. And I sold a bunch of them. And that's one transition that I made from doing odd jobs to start getting business out of my art. And I ended up meeting somebody in town that I tried many times, that this gentleman had a store that they sold, art supplies and pictures, chairs, things for the house. And finally, because those days there was no cell phone, finally I could meet with him. And then he put some of my work in the store and they start selling. And I keep getting my money. And with the money, I bought more art supplies. I was doing more and more and more. And finally, he ended up putting 3 other locations.
Ah.
And then he thought, wow, the store was selling well art. And he thought about opening a small gallery. And this small gallery was in Coconut Grove. I don't know if you know this community here. It's a very, very, in the middle of very affluent communities, a very little neighborhood. And he opened in a mall called the Mayfair Gallery. He had one there. He opened a second one. And but when I went there to pick up my money, I was like, this is not an art gallery. This was a hair salon.
Oh.
So he got this empty space, a hair salon. He got a short-term lease. And he put art, not only my art, he got other artists.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you know Roy Neiman. So he got some Roy Neiman, some whatever, and put my art there. And then when I went there the first time, I was like, oh my God, there's hair everywhere here. I was cleaning. As I was cleaning, 2 people they walk in, and then they were asking about the art. And they ended up selling 2 pieces of my work.
Oh, wow.
And with the money of that sale, I got paint in Home Depot, and I paint all the walls, and there was mirrors everywhere. And I paint all the mirrors and I paint over. So I wanted to create kind of an art studio in that little space.
So you made the hair salon your art studio.
Yes.
I love it.
And then the Mr. Mato, the guy that, got the lease, he was very upset. He said, Romero, you destroy the store. You know, I was like, so the manager, she came to visit and she loved it.
Yeah.
She had a different, you know, she attitude.
Perspective on it.
Yeah, she loved it. And I ended up disconnecting myself from Mr. Mato.
Uh-huh.
You know, I realized that he didn't have a vision of what I thought that I wanted to do at that point. And I disconnected. It was nice. It was not a fight or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took over the short-term lease and I stayed in that mall for 5 years.
Wow.
And that's where I met the people from Absolut Vodka.
Okay.
And I got the contract with Absolut Vodka.
And that was your first big licensing
Yes. It was a big one. And then after that, my work was magazines everywhere.
deal. Yeah.
Like
And then
all
when
the
did
magazines you can imagine.
That's a great accident story of history. But when did the big break? Absolute was the first for you, but then Disney was huge in your world too.
Yes. I think what happened is the follow. There is a lot of events that happen in somebody else's life, but it's not just one, but a combination of many of those. But there's one, I think was very important for me, the Absolut Vodka, because the Absolut Vodka was doing, you know, a project with a company that did project with Andy Warhol, Keith Haring.
Right.
All those artists are so famous, right?
Yes.
And then when you connect yourself with amazing people, it's much better than when you don't. You know what I mean?
It's contagious.
Yeah, it's a good lesson for kids too. Like you need
You
to
are
make
who
sure
you associate with.
Absolutely.
Yes, you gotta definitely connect with people, be around people that something nice come out. Like if Kate Middleton didn't go to Eton School, she would never turn the Queen of England.
Very
Probably
true.
not, you know? So where you go, your school, your neighborhood, your friends, it doesn't mean that all your friends has to be rich and brilliant. Some of them can be a person with a great heart. Some of them can be a funny one, but it gotta be good people, you know,
Yeah.
not bad kids or bad people. Connection is really crucial for the development of anybody, of business, you know, characters and all kind of stuff. So it was a
And
very
that's true at the top of the funnel and at the bottom. So if kids grow
Yeah.
up in a tough neighborhood and the only social network is gangs, that's how they can fall
Yeah.
into that too. We are sometimes victims of our circumstances, but you're saying
Yeah.
when you can be deliberate about who you choose to associate with, it has a tremendous influence on your life.
Yeah. Usually I try my best to just hang out with people that are inspiring to me. Yeah.
So your first big break was Absolute, but then you have connected a lot with Disney. I remember seeing
Yes.
your, Disney figurines with Brito.
Yeah.
Tell us about that collaboration.
So then after Absolut Vodka came the collaboration with Disney, and the collaboration still on. And then I did collaborations with Pepsi Cola,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola. I did the opening ceremony of the Super Bowl here in Florida, which was seen by millions of people.
The
And I did
Olympics too
together
one
with
year,
Cirque du
right?
Soleil.
You were, if I
I did
recall, an
also- I
honorary
was-
torchbearer at the 2016 Rio Olympics,
Yep.
right?
Yes, and then I got invited by FIFA to be the ambassador for the World Cup Brazil. But the year before, I was invited by FIFA to be the official artist to create a poster for the, World Cup South Africa.
Yep.
And then in Brazil was also with the Olympics. I was the ambassador for the Olympics. I worked with Coca-Cola as well. So I did a lot of things during the Olympics in Brazil. So I've been doing so many things. I've worked with Hasbro, Mattel,
Right.
and Universal Studio.
And now
My
1-800
God,
Flowers, right?
Yeah, now with 1-800 Flowers. Yeah, so many things I've done. It's like unbelievable. And so many charities that I've worked in the past, have honored me in many ways. So, it's been pretty incredible.
We love, the happiness that your art creates. We love the bold colors. And I know when we met with you down in Miami, Jim was like, we got to get this within 1-800 Flowers. It just screams like it's going to make somebody's day. What inspires your art and the beautiful, bold happiness colors that you use?
Well, I think life without color wouldn't be the same. I mean, think about it. If the world would be, black, gray, and black and gray. I mean, it wouldn't be the same. Colors definitely can, create beautiful vibrations in your home. When you dress something colorful. Don't take me wrong. Black is a very powerful color, but I think it's very important to have you at home things that can inspire you. In my
Right.
house, I have a lot of white, but I have a lot of colors in the art. So
But you use a lot of black too. And I think the black
I
that you
do.
use allows the
Accent.
color to shine.
Yes. I mean, there's certain amount of black that I use, but the majority is color.
Yeah.
And the flowers look so beautiful when it comes in a vase like that, because the vase, a lot of time people get rid of the vase, but this vase is going to be a reminder
Oh,
of the
Oh
yes.
yeah.
flowers. So
Absolutely.
I think it's so great.
Romero, uh, your work, I've said the word happy many times because that's what comes to mind when I see your work. I was walking down Fifth Avenue in New York City the other day, and there's a gallery in the low 50s on the east side of the street, and I could see your work on the wall as I was approaching the gallery, and you can't help but recognize your work. And it just screams happy to me. Lisa and I were working on a project we're doing coming up in a few days, and we were talking about the difference between optimist and pessimist. And Dr. George Everly, our partner in some of the work we do, told us that only 20% of people are born naturally optimistic. That would 80% of us are pessimistic, but that we can train our brains and do exercises to make us more optimistic. And we do know that optimists have a much better life than pessimists. They're happier, they're healthier, physically, measurably healthier. They have more friends, they're more successful in their careers. Were you always an optimist, or have you trained yourself to be optimistic?
I think there was a time when I was a kid, I was a very shy kid. And I remember once I went to I got a scholarship in this very special school in my town. And I remember that all the kids used to go, that when there was a break, they would leave the class and I would stay in my table there in my area there. And then one of the supervisor came and said to me that it was very important for me to go and connect to the kids, and he gave me this analogy that I never forgot, something like that, like a sunflower. A sunflower keep moving around, right? The sun moving around. But there's a point that sunflowers start doing like this and turn to itself. And if sunflowers start looking to itself, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good thing. It's very important the sunflower to be moving around, and the idea of being connected with other people. And I do understand so much more today how important it is to have, you know, constant, connections with people, because you learn so much every day. There's
Mm-hmm.
something that you can learn about that person or in general about something. I think it's so great.
Funny enough,
Huh?
Jim identifies himself as a shy person, or started off as a shy
I'm in
person
recovery.
as well. Yeah. And so you've trained yourself
Yes.
to not be shy. So it sounds like a very similar story.
But what I like about your story, Ramiro, is one that we've heard a lot in the last week: the impact of a particular teacher. And we've heard it a dozen times in the last couple of weeks about a single teacher. And I get to do a commencement speech this weekend, and I decided I wanted to mention a professor who I had in college who had a profound impact on my life. And you mentioned that this teacher in that special school, by just giving you that analogy, just changed how you thought about things. It's a recurring theme. The role that an individual teacher, we had it when we were talking to Anna Gifty the other
Yeah.
day. She talked about it, a principal in the school she went to and a math teacher
That's
who
right.
just did an unlock for her. This was a gal who was on her way to study medicine, and changed because of the influence of a teacher, and is now getting her PhD in economics at the Kennedy School at Harvard. And it was the influence of one teacher, just that unlock, just showing a kid a path. And how many of those teachers know?
Yeah.
Does that teacher know what an impact he or she had on you?
Well, I mean, listen, I think was someone that had practiced,
Hmm.
on seeing kids coming from all sorts, because it was was a private school that they had given, a scholarship for kids poor like myself at that point. And there was a mix between was different worlds in that, because I was walking to school. I had schoolmates there that were coming with driver security and everything, you know what I mean? Which was very different. For me, it was a very different scenario. And, but I do like the idea of meeting, I made a lot of friendship in that school, and it was very good for me. And as time go went by, I realized the importance of friendship, you know, and to find people that can be some sort of inspiration, and whatever they're doing for me was like, oh my God, they do this. And actually it's going to be in the documentary, someone that I kept in connection, that I met a long time ago.
Tell us about them, because Jim, you always talk about having like a core group of friends, and having that community is so important. Like who tell us about your friend, tell us about the community that you've built for yourself.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of those because I lived in US for 40 years.
Oh wow.
And so many things happen. And then I would be like writing notes. The demands in here was so much that I couldn't, no way, maintain friendship in here, friendship all over.
Right.
Today is different because I have a team, and we have like internet, we have
WhatsApp, you
all
can
kind of
text.
stuff.
Yep.
You have like Instagram. Like the other day, this friend of mine that I was just mentioned, Zezinho, and Zezinho came from a super wealthy family. I got to know him through another friend that I was studying English in my town, because I also got a scholarship to study English. And I met Zezinho in that school, and we keep in touch somehow. And we're still now in touch because, thank God, because of social media.
Right.
But it's pretty hard. I mean, it's just, to go back that far. But here and there, I have people say, oh, I went to school with you. Oh, I was there. So more and more as time goes by, people come and, say, oh, I was at school with you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, we all look so different.
Yeah.
So,
there's something about, the friends that you make in school as you're growing up. There's some sort of bond there that just never breaks.
A point of reference and a point in time.
Exactly.
The person
like
you were
you've been
then.
through it together. You're always able to, get back to that mindset, I think, no matter how old you are, whether it's been 40 years or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Times go by very fast.
Tell me about today, Romero. Are you deliberate about working relationships in your life? And I think it's important for men in particular. I think it comes much more natural to women to have relationships, friendships. Is it something that comes easy to you? Are you deliberate about it? Do you work at it?
Well, I do have friends. I know a lot of people.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's different though.
I know a lot of people, but there's a very small group of people that I like to hang out with. You know what I mean? That I was like, I'll do anything to hang out with those friends of mine. And, a small group of people.
But somebody who's traveling as much as you, I know you mentioned social media.
Makes it much harder.
Yeah, allows us to sort of like stay in contact or WhatsApp or text.
Yes,
but what is the glue that holds you and your small group of friends together?
I think it's because we experience the same thing in terms of success. And like when I hang out with Nobu in Tokyo, he knows that I'm not asking there anything. We see each other. We're celebrating our friendship. I'm like, hey, Nobu, let's do another deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when I hang out with him, it's because I hang out with him. If I hang out with a friend in London, if I'm going to hang out with the grandson of the Queen of England, it's not like I'm going to ask him a title or anything.
Right.
Because everybody's asking something. And
and you too.
Right. Huh?
I'm sure that happens in your world too. You're famous, very famous, and people want something from you.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. Give something for my charity. And then sometimes the charity selling for less because that person wants to buy a piece of it. Just happens so many things. So the friends that I have is the friends that I don't ask anything to them. They don't ask me anything to me. I
Yes.
Right.
have a friend of mine here in Miami. He's actually French. And then one of the things between us is that I never ask anything to him. If I want to do something to him, I would do it, for him or for his family,
Right.
but not that he asked me. And I never ask him anything.
Hmm.
Nobody asks nothing to nobody. And that's the best way to do it. Because, because I also feel very bad when people, I was like, is this person my friend or you want to just ask me
Right.
thing?
Right.
Hmm.
Let's just be friends. Can we just be friends? Like,
So let's get back to the art, Romero, because you are very recognizable as an artist. And your art, I think, Jim was just saying we passed by and we're like, oh, that's a Romero Britto. That's, you can see it. Now, today, and I want to bring up, the new innovation of technology and AI and how people are generating art from a computer versus creating it yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've gone a long time without mentioning
well,
AI. How can
Yeah,
we fix
I
this?
know.
yeah, listen, through ages, there were so many new advancements, so many
Yeah,
different ways that artists, when you go back to Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they were using certain techniques and certain tools to make sure that they would project something that would be perfectly in there,
yeah,
on those massive murals. So I think, when photography came was a huge, development for humans to see themselves,
right,
because before it was portrait. Who was telling the story was those paintings, and then came photography, and then came internet, and now came AI. I think in the end of the day, with all that, you know, we definitely need to embrace it. We can't be scared about it.
I
You
love
know what I mean?
that.
So, and who knows what all this gonna, is gonna make it things faster. Of course that I think as long as we have humans, we all gonna know what it feels, this amazing thing that's happening inside of our body, and it's so special that I question how we're going to be able to multiply or copy this feeling that we have inside of us,
Yeah,
in our body, in terms of being a place, being next to a person, or fall in love with somebody, love your child, or love your sibling, your husband, or just love nature. And I don't know if a robot would do that. Do you
that's a
know what I
very
mean?
good point. Right.
So I do think this can facilitate a lot, because so many times people are at work doing things, but if you are a company that you are able to say, all right, I would need to pay a certain amount of money for the government to have 100 robots,
Hmm.
because now this money is going to be going to subsidize lives of other people. Do you understand?
Sure.
Yeah,
So instead for you to hire, let's say if you hire 100 people and 100 robots, but those robots is going to make work equivalent for maybe 200, where the money, should that money go all to the bank account of the company, or it should go to subsidize somebody
right.
somewhere, or that person is going to be uh, a a mentor of those robots, and they would work few hours, and then you're going to go home and do whatever.
So it'll give
Do you
you an
understand?
opportunity, yes,
So
to enjoy the wonderful things of life versus the job, and being able to, subsidize somebody else's life in order to have a robot do some of the work.
yeah, I think ideally something like that, that companies that would hire or buy robots, they would have to pay a certain amount of money for, or for the government, or for, your own organization. Okay, I'm going to bring a robot. I need to pay more for that person, and that person is going to work to manage the robot, but
Yeah.
you don't need to be there all the time.
Hmm.
Something like that, because you cannot just like hire a robot, and what about other people without jobs?
Yeah. A
You know,
true
it's gonna
philanthropist,
be like a
right?
combination of that. Okay, if my job, if I can make, I don't know, like whatever amount of money myself, I could have two robots to help me.
Yeah.
but they're gonna split with that the upkeep, you know,
Right.
There'll be a
Yeah.
and I'll be
tax
able
on the
to do
robot.
more.
Yeah.
Back to the art for a second, Romero. Your style is so well known. Is that in some way uh, constraining on you? Is your work still evolving? And can you see something you did 10 years ago and say, oh yeah, I was working this way 10 years ago and it's different today. So is your work continuing to evolve, or is the success that you've had, the recognition you have, in some ways constrain your style evolution?
No, I mean, if you have a time, I mean, right now, what people see is what is being exposed the most.
Yep.
But
Right.
I've done so many periods. I had the moment that I painted like just finger paint. There was a moment that I only paint like I was only work primary colors. And then I add the pastels, and then I add the metallics. And then there was a time my work was not as clean as it is. And then I start cleaning up, and then I started doing monochromatic pieces as well. I did a lot of monochromatic pieces, and so I think what happens is that we need to do eventually a catalog resonate that people can see all the variety of work that I've done, and I'm still developing new pieces.
Yep.
But what does happen is that, as we all know, there's people out there that they want to have something that scream Brittle.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, from all the transition that I do, I have to always somehow there leave the DNA of Brittle, of this vocabulary, of this language, of this imagery, this color combination. But, I've done so many things, and there's so many more that I wanted to do.
What are you working on now?
Oh, I'm working several paintings. Some of the pieces will be a combination between what you have in there and some of the graffiti pieces that I'm doing right now. So it's a mix between the very hard edge and the mix of very fluid as well.
I like that. Love that.
You talked about the influences and hanging around with people like at the original gallery there in Coconut Grove, that it was important who you were seen with and who you were inspired by. When you do your travel, you mentioned you'll be going to Florence, you'll be going to Rome. Are there places or things or people or work that you go to see regularly because they just resonate with you, that you just admire the work? There's a little item in Florence called David, and I can't go to Florence without visiting there. And I just find that you're in the presence of something magical.
Yeah. No, definitely. And there's many places that I like to go back and check it out to see what, how I feel that day. You know what I mean? It's so important to just go there to make a visit. I love going to Europe because of that, because, seeing all this beautiful art that has been there, and it's such a source of inspiration for myself. Those grand pieces, like, it's fantastic. The other day I went to visit a gallery, not a gallery, a collector in Switzerland, and he got beautiful, beautiful old masters.
Oh, yeah.
And he was telling me a story that an artist, many years ago, when they used to visit a collector, a noble, to present their work, there was no photography. So they used to do a little miniature of how a painting would look, so you could have an idea. So it was not a photograph, it was actually something very small. And I was like, because it wasn't his wall there, he got one of those pieces. I was blown away. This was a sample, just to show how would look a bigger one. And it was very small in a beautiful frame. I was like, unbelievable.
That itself is the art, right?
Sure it is.
Yeah, like a little sample just to see how it looked was amazing.
We saw so much on TV recently about Rome and the Vatican, and my wife and I a year ago were in Rome, and we were part of a small group that got a private tour of St. Peter's in the evening, and we were allowed to stand very proximate to the Pietra, and just to be in the presence of something that beautiful and that exquisite, it's emotional.
Yeah.
And then seeing the cardinals in the Sistine Chapel, I remember company I used to work with, we had an opportunity to go there in the evening, and they lined up these like recliner chairs, and we just sat back to back looking at the ceiling with a wonderful art historian explaining it to us, and it just made it seem so different. So, I found myself just smiling when I saw the cardinals going into the Sistine Chapel recently for the conclave, because it is such a place of beauty, and they must all feel very inspired, and to realize they're in a very special place with a very special mission there. Art does change the way we feel.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful, amazing. It's an amazing experience. I'm so grateful that I've been there a few times. It's very special.
Romero, you have some reoccurring themes in your artwork. Hearts, flowers. I know there's, a little balloon dog. Tell us about what inspires those themes that you keep reoccurring to recognize your artwork as a Romero Britto piece.
Well, I mean, you see a lot of themes in my work from animals, from nature. I've done paintings about family members, about friends, about news, about fashion. There's so many things that I've done that have impacted, me throughout the ages, and but I paint the universe of things that I love.
Yeah.
From furniture, I've done furniture that I like very much. Chairs,
Cars, right?
cars.
We saw a couple of cars.
Yeah, so I paint what I love, and somehow touched me, like make me feel like, wow, this is so cool, So
You mentioned a documentary coming up. Tell us a little bit about
yes,
that.
yes, the documentary is telling a story. Of course, an hour and a half is not enough to tell everything.
Of course.
But it's going to come with the story. You're going to have an idea, because a lot of time when you see an artist, you know bits and pieces, unless someone go and read a whole book.
Yeah.
And then you definitely know more about it if you want to know more about Picasso or, Michelangelo or Matisse or Leonardo da Vinci. And then you have a more, a broader, informative things of the artist. But I think the document can be very helpful to a lot of people to see, because a lot of people, they think about what I'm doing now.
Right.
The art that got more exposure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's so many other ones that did not got that exposure, but they were very meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And when will that documentary be out, and where will we be able
So
to
the
find it?
documentary is being this back and forth with the producer. The producer trying to get the best views, and it seemed that it's in about 90 days. I'm so happy
Oh,
that the
so
documentary is ready.
exciting.
Yes, because we're such the back and forth, but they are working on that.
That'd
so
be great.
I'm
I
happy.
can't wait to
Yeah, I
see
can't
it.
wait for everybody to enjoy and everything. So
All right, take us for a walk 5 years out. What does the next 5 years for Britto, what does it look like if you say, this is what success would be for me if I'm spending my time doing these things over the next 5 years?
Well, I think number one, I want to add here in the palace so people would be able to come to visit without making an appointment.
Yeah.
I mean, there'll be appointments, and then there'll be like part of the place that wouldn't need an appointment.
I mean,
That's-
it's a beautiful site.
It's
I
inspiring.
could have spent all day there. We had to leave, but it's
We went
gorgeous.
reluctantly.
Talk about, being in an environment that inspires you, that your palace is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. So the idea would be to have this place open so you could go through the whole building without having to have an appointment, or you could have an appointment, a tour guide, and you could have lunch or breakfast or dinner. And we want a place in here, because we need to build more, is to do more events, that we could have multiple events at the same time.
Yes.
Because that way we will bring more and more people here, and they will definitely, leave inspired and learning more about Romero Britto, because a lot of time you buy a painting in a gallery, but you don't have the whole story.
Right.
That could be one thing. And I do want to do more art installation in different parts of the world, like I did in the past, like in
London.
Hyde Park, in Berlin, and Brazil. That's one thing I want to do. And also to do more project with the school system in different parts of the world.
Okay.
Yes.
Love that.
And we are working on, there's an idea for me to do a cartoon and something for television.
No
But
kidding.
all that takes time,
Yes.
Oh,
So,
yes. Yes.
yeah.
I love the idea of a
So
cartoon.
it sounds like the definition of success in the future for you is more.
Yeah, doing more.
More installations, more travel, more fun, more people, more visiting.
I also want my foundation to be more active because I do have a foundation, but my foundation, what I've done, I end up working with other foundation, but I want to also do something about my foundation. And so that's another thing I wanted to do.
You know, at Flowers, 1-800-Flowers, Romero, we used to open stores on a regular basis, and I found that the best way to open a store and get it to be connected to the community was to go and find in that community struggling up and coming artists. And if we had, sometimes we opened some really big and attractive stores, and we'd go and do a grand opening and we'd celebrate the local artists. So we'd pick one or two or three local artists who hadn't yet had a show, and we put up their work and on the walls and around the shop. And we did a velvet rope grand opening with a clipboard and the security outside, and people got invited. And we found it was such a wonderful way to get connected to a community because artists, especially up and coming artists, are well known in their communities, but the whole community is rooting for them to have that first show and to give. So I used to buy a piece at each of those shows, and I have them all over now because each one of them is not just a beautiful piece, but it's a story.
Right.
It's a person that we knew up and some of them have gone on to have quite a bit of professional success. So it was a fun thing to do. But you know that because you get to meet all those up and coming artists all the time. And how do you try and shine a little light on ones you're particularly fond of?
Well, I mean, whatever I can say to a young artist, you know, because there's so many questions, you know. For instance, I was having lunch somewhere, and then this young artist, as I was going to my car, asked me to see his work. And then I saw the portfolio. I asked the size of the paintings, and then he told me how big it was. Big horses. He was doing beautiful horses, and I was like, "It's so beautiful." And I asked the price. That the price was pretty big, and I told him, "I think we should do big, but do smaller as well, because somebody may have a smaller space." And somebody may not want to spend that much money.
Right.
And then you lose an opportunity for somebody to start living with your art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can do it small. And you can see that in all business. Like if you're going to go to Hermes, you have the Birkins, the most expensive bags, but you can get them, buy a tie, a perfume, a scarf with no problem.
Yep.
You can buy so many things from Hermes, a flip-flop, you know, and all that. Make sure that the company is growing. It's not just about one big thing, but it's a combination of smaller thing. And
I like the term
you know,
you used, let people start to live with your art.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's
you
what we're
need-
trying to do here at 1-800-Flowers.
Yeah, we're so excited to expose the few people who don't know you
Ye-
and your work, expose them to your work and the beauty of the flowers and the combination.
But they can
this
get
is fun.
a piece of Britto
Yep.
that, you know, they're not necessarily spending a huge amount of and have a piece of you in their home as well. So I think this is the start of a really nice relationship.
I'm excited about it. We
Yeah.
were excited to meet you a year and a half ago. We're excited to now finally be working with you. You have a terrific group of people there, and we'll be excited to come down and visit the
Yes.
palace once again when you're back in town and find more and interesting ways to collaborate. You're just a wonderful person, and as a leader of the happy art movement, we're proud to be in your fan club.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the idea I had to tell you is brilliant because, listen, when you receive flowers from a friend and the vase is clear, most of the time people get rid of it. But those vases, people's going to keep it and put somewhere.
Oh,
sure.
yes.
And so it's going to be always a reminder of two people, two events. One is the friend and one is flowers, the flower, 1-800-Flowers. You know what I mean? It's genius because you're going to be present there. It's not like disappear.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going to be there always. Thank you
You know.
so much, Romero.
No, my pleasure.
We appreciate
My
you
pleasure.
chatting with us today.